Okay, we're back.
Yay! We're in the sweet. Sweet, we're back. Sorry about that, guys. Lots of technical difficulties. This is sort of a new concept that we're working with here in a new format. So, we're going to have some of these sometimes, and I really appreciate you guys bearing with us. So somebody in the chat room commented that Brendan is looking very bored. So
I think scared was actually.
Scared was the word. Okay. So we're going to include Brendan in the conversation since he didn't read the book. I'm going to ask one of those questions I've got saved up for just this occasion. So one of the things Campbell talks about is myths as a part of initiation. A lot of what he talks about, and I'm sorry, men, you can cringe. I promise you this is going to be the last time I scarred you for life. We can do it one more. He talks a lot about circumcision as a ritual, and that is a something that is practiced around the world. But there are also modern sort of rites of passage. Not everybody is sent alone in the forest in a dagger and a vision quest anymore, although I would love to do that eventually. So I'd like to ask, Brendan, what do you feel has taken the place of some of these historic rites of passage in modern culture?
Oh.
And ask you as well, if you've got any answers, chime in and Fox will read them out to me.
Let's see, I wasn't prepared for the question.
Basically,
Well, circumcision is still quite around.
Circumcision is still around, yes.
Fraternity rushes!
Fraternity rushes are one of them, and those come with certain forms of hazing, hopefully not so much, but there is the giant paddle that sits inside of most frat houses, and that might be similar to the gauntlet that men were expected to run.
Let's see the big talk.
The big talk.
The big talk.
Yes. Learning men's or woman's mysteries, normally done if we want to get into intense spirituality. Basically, there was a custom of women during that time of month being set apart from their people, especially in Hebrew cultures. And a lot of people believe this is when women's mysteries were passed on to them. And nowadays you have the one-on-one talk with your parents. That tradition is still alive and well.
As far as I know, that same idea, the red tent, is similar in Eskimo culture as well. And because the smell of the blood would attract various predators, they would send the women off into the various not-in-town locations so that if she got eaten, she'd be eaten by herself.
So bears really do smell menstruation. Ron Burgundy was right, apparently. What else? For me and my family, a big rite of passage is the first glass of wine. And wine has been used in a lot of religious ceremonies. In the Catholic tradition, it's still used. You get your first communion. Is the first time that you get to take wine during the sacraments. So that's an initiation that's still alive and well. There's the bat and bat mitzvahs, and that is sort of a form of initiation. Does anybody feel like we kind of lack initiations in our modern culture? Or what's an initiation practice you'd like to see brought back? And what's one that you wouldn't like to see?
Well, actually, I believe that he kind of goes into this in the book that when you're missing some sort of rite of passage, some part of moving forward through your life, that I should probably get on camera for this. I believe he actually says in the book that when you're missing a rite of passage, am I even on screen?
I was going to say that.
Sit in my lap.
I believe that he says in the book that when you're missing some sort of rite of passage or anything that you would be getting through myth, and you don't get it through either the myth or from your culture, that you'll get it in dreams.
You will get it in dreams. This is true. He talks, again, in the idea about circumcision, he talks about, I believe it's it may or may not be a Yoruba tradition. Do not...
That'd be a terrifying dream.
What? Oh, yes. Well, all right.
So with that in mind, I would just like to ask, do you think that modern common dreams might be things that point to things that are missing in our lives? Like the naked at school dream.
Yeah, well, that might be,
And I'm going to go back over here.
well, I know the naked at school dream generally is interpreted as you're feeling vulnerable at that time. What did someone say?
We're talking about Green Lantern now.
Oh, jeez, because of your t-shirt.
Yeah, because I'm coming in and out. They're just like, is that the Green Lantern or the Flash?
Anyways, the initiation that Campbell mentions and the dream he mentions in the book is that he talks about the tradition of circumcision. And he talks about a dream where this man finally, I believe, stands up to his parents about... Let me find it, because I might be mixing it up with another one. But basically, the man in the dream actually dreams that a snake comes and circumcises him. And that's sort of... Yeah. Yes. And that is actually, snakes are a very common motif in initiatory myths. If you think of the story of the Bible of Adam and Eve, depending on who you're talking to about this may be a negative initiation. But a snake is involved in initiating Eve into the knowledge of good and evil. And without the help of the snake, she would have, been ignorant of that knowledge. Or, spared women having to go through the process of menstruation. But, with the snake giving her the apple, that's when the first woman developed menstruation, according to the Bible. Essentially, that was her punishment. Although if you ask women's mysteries practitioners, they might say that was her gift, is the fertility.
Heads up, somebody in chat says that a modern rite of passage is getting your driver's license.
This is true, getting your driver's license.
Graduation.
Graduation, that too. Yes, getting your driver's license. And I know for me, when if you want to talk about the archetype of supplanting the role of the parent, that final moment where you're sitting in the driver's seat and your parent is sitting in the seat that you've been sitting in all your life, that's actually, if you think about it, a very symbolic thing.
Especially with driving being as big as it is now.
Yeah, especially with driving being as big as it is now. Are we dropping hints for Foxglove to get her license?
Or even actually come to
PG-13. No. For those of you who don't know, I am one of the few people at this museum who has my license. And would love to stop being the designated driver.
We'll get you drunk when we get home. Jeez.
Anyways.
And if I might add, actually, come to think of it, certain ages can actually be considered rites of passage. For example, the ages of 18 and 21. That's when
true.
someone is officially considered an adult.
That's true.
What about, for example, 16, when many people are allowed to legally have sex?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, you're considered an adult.
No, you are.
Well,
no.
most people go 18, but 16
Well,
is fine.
nowadays it does seem a little
Yeah,
less
16
and
is in
less.
some states.
It's technically legal.
Technically legal, yes. And a lot of people, there's definitely a lot of debate, depending on who you ask, about whether or not...
It was pointed out that it was 13, 16, 18, 21, and 14 in Canada.
Really?
Yeah.
14 for what? Do I want to know?
For sex, I assume.
No, it's Canada.
It's Canada. Well, they have to keep warm
legal
somehow.
sex.
They have to keep warm somehow.
Snap.
I'll go for the Canadians.
Anyways, I have nothing. Canadians brought us Nathan Fillion. I will never complain about them.
But just on that note, a subject near and dear to my heart
Yes.
on this sex age thing is many coming-of-age stories in fairy tales. For example, Little Red Riding Hood, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, all these ones where they're woken with a kiss. It's a little bit more intimate than that.
Well, also the idea of the animal husband, such as the beast, or The Frog Prince, those stories were told to get women ready for the initiation of the arranged marriage. And depending on who you ask, this was a good or a bad thing. I have read things that talk about basically the idea is marry your husband, he's going to seem like a beast now, but once you have sex with him and make you happy, he's going to be a great guy. Disney was not so nice as you think, but other stories, I've been reading this excellent book, I wish I had written down the author, called Woman Who Run with Wolves, which is about the wild woman archetype. And there's a story in it about this girl named Vasilisa, who begins her life, much as Cinderella does, as a slave to her evil step-siblings and mother. And she is sent into the forest as an evil prank, they blow up a fire, tell them the flint and tinder has gone missing, and the only way for her to go and get fire is to visit the Baba Yaga, who is a recurring villain or sometimes helper in Russian mythology, and sometimes considered a crone form of the goddess. So she has to go and get fire from this horrible witch, and do all of these steps to take it, and do a lot of the things. She has to do chores, do errands. She has a magical helper, who is this little doll that her mother gave her. And through it all, she's able to learn enough to take the fire, which is symbolic of the knowledge she's learned on her journey, back home. And then the fire turns into a skeleton and consumes her evil step-people. So it ends up happy for her, but not so much for them. But that's another example of the type of story. As well as the story of Bluebeard, in which this woman is married off to this man who has this little room in his house, and he tells her you can go in any room but this little room. And originally the girl didn't want to marry this man. She thought he was kind of sketchy. But he brought her and her family on a nice vacation, took them frolicking in the woods on a hunt, and she kind of was like, okay, maybe I was wrong about this guy. So a few months after they were married, Bluebeard gives her all of the keys to the house and says to her, I'm going on a business trip. I'm leaving you in charge of the house. You may go in any room in this house except for the one that is opened with the little key. So he leaves. But as in many of these stories, the young woman's curiosity gets the better of her. So she goes around the house and opens every single door, and she finds beautiful furniture and gold, and she's gone into every room until at last she comes to the room that opens with the little key. And she's like, should I do it? No. Oh, what's the harm? So she puts the little key inside of the lock, and she opens the door. And inside she finds the remains of all of Bluebeard's previous wives. She wasn't the first. She slams the door shut and removes the key. But the key, she looks down and there's a red stain, red liquid dripping down from the key. The key is bleeding. And there is no way that she can stop it. She tries to wash it off, but it keeps bleeding. Her sleeves are stained red. And all of a sudden she hears the trotting of horses on the cobblestones leading up to the castle, and she looks out the window and Bluebeard is home. So she hides the key in her dresser, but it still won't stop bleeding. She changes her clothes, but it's still there. So she goes to Bluebeard and she says to him, hi honey, how was your trip? And he says, oh wonderful dear, do you have the keys? And she gives him the rest of the keys, and he looks and is like, something's missing. Where's the little key? Oh honey, it must be on there. Where's the little key? And he storms into a rage into her room and into her dresser, which is covered in blood. He pulls out the little key. And he's in a rage. You went into that room. You've seen all my previous wives, and now you'll join them. And she prays. She says, oh, give me time to make peace with God. Just give me enough time. And she knows if she stalls long enough, her brothers were supposed to visit her that day. It's convenient timing. She needs to stall long enough for her brothers to come and save her. And she goes upstairs and she locks herself up there. And Bluebeard is pounding on the door and says, are you ready yet? And she's like, a few more minutes, let me finish my prayers. And Bluebeard is pounding on the door. And she looks out and she says to one of her servants, do you see my brothers coming? And the servants say, no, we can't see anything. And Bluebeard is pounding on the door, and she says, "Please, do you see my brothers coming?" And the servants say, "No, we don't see anything but gathering dust on the horizon." And she's pounding on the door, or Bluebeard is pounding on the door, and he gets an axe and he's chopping at the door, and she says, "Please, do you see my brothers coming?" And they say, "Look, we see a group of horsemen." And Bluebeard is hacking through the door, hacking through. He's made it through. And he storms in, but just as he gets to his wife and is about to cut her throat, the brothers storm in just in time, and there was a great duel, and they eventually win. Now, I hope you enjoyed that story. I wasn't planning on doing that tonight, but if you like it, I'll do it more often. So the moral of this story, as I read it in this archetype, this is this girl's journey, this young woman's journey to learning to trust her own intuition. At the beginning, she really mistrusted Bluebeard. Like I said, she wasn't so cool with him until he took her family on the hunt, and she showered her with all kinds of fun and gifts and merriment. And she thought, oh, he wasn't a bad guy. Maybe I was wrong. She didn't trust herself. And then she moves into the castle. And she doesn't really want to look at the little room at first. You know, she tries to ignore that inkling of curiosity that tells her something must be up. But then she opens the door and she realizes the truth. So this is about a story really about a person coming into their own and learning to trust their instincts instead of just blindly following whoever places a shiny in front of them, or strangers with candy, learning to keep yourself out of dangerous situations. And in order to really do that, there's two ways you can do that. By going through the experience yourself, being in an abusive relation. Oh, is there a comment? Being in an abusive relationship and learning, oh, I never want to do this again. And the second way, of course, is to experience it through myth and through story. And stories like the one of Bluebeard were meant to tell women to be cautious.
We've got Nestor saying, "Who keeps their dead wives?"
You ever watch Special Victims Unit? There are crazies out there. Watch some Law and Order, people. Watch some CSI. There are some modern cautionary tales.
Actually, I think Bluebeard kind of is a modern cautionary tale.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, anybody who is, you know, I was reading this story, as I was reading this story, I was thinking of a very dear friend of mine from high school who had, against her better judgment, entered into a situation like this. And it became very, very difficult for her. And it's the sort of thing, the best way to avoid a situation like that is to know never to let yourself get into it. And it is very difficult when a person does get into something like an abusive relationship. And I mean, for me, I guess I sort of learned the signs from what my friend went through. She was my Bluebeard, and that was the learning through experience or learning vicariously through the stories of others. But I mean, this also goes to show that the archetypical stories are just as important and necessary now as they were back then.
Well, what I was going to bring in as a modern idea is the idea Bluebeard shows kind of like the idea of STDs. Sorry, I can explain it.
Brendan, stop giggling!
So he gives her all these keys and says, you can do whatever you want in my house. Mm-hmm. Your house is symbolical of a body. And so she's allowed to do whatever she wants in his house. And except for one thing.
The small key?
The small key. Which, I'm going to let you guys go where that
Don't
goes.
giggle.
Don't giggle.
My first time.
And then when she opens that room and finds out about all of his previous lovers and how they're all dead, STDs, the key starts to bleed. That would be representing him taking her virginity in a traditional sense. But
yes,
then it won't stop bleeding. That indicates a deeper problem than just your normal losing of the virginity. And so, yeah, that's my 2 cents. STDs.
So the moral of this 400-year-old story is use a condom.
Or Or check a guy before you start dating him.
That too. Yeah. There's a lot of different meanings from these tales that can be drawn, and not every person goes into a story and takes the same message. I believe personally that people will go into a story and take what they need, and that there is, as a writer, I believe there's no one interpretation of a story. There's, yes, what I intended when I wrote it, but once it's out of my hands and in your minds, it's whatever you guys do with it. And that's where we get fan fiction, but that's another story. But no, I think that people do go into a story and get what they need from it, what they personally needed to hear and needed to read. And that's why you get so many different versions of myths. I was explaining during the camera blackout that there is no one Greek myth canon. For example, if you were to read the Oresteia, which is the cycle of basically Orestes and his sister Electra avenging their father's death by murdering their mother, and you were to read Electra by Euripides, I believe it was Aeschylus who wrote the Oresteia. I know Euripides wrote Electra. Anyway, point is, in the Oresteia, Electra is a very sweet, she's urging her brother to take care of their family. She's a much milder character. In Electra, she's your typical Euripides batshit insane crazy lady, which often happens in his stories. If you've ever read Medea, they all kind of end the same. Medea. Not related to the Tyler Perry movies. Not related to them at all. So yeah, that's
Oh goodness.
what?
Got a little saying here.
Yes.
If you're not a genie, wrap your weenie.
Oh my!
And I didn't really get that, so I asked what they meant by that. He was explaining to me that this means you can wish them free of whatever you don't want them to have, and they have to grant it.
We are really pushing the PG-13 rating tonight. Yeah. So what time is it? What time have we got?
It's 7:49.
It's 7:49. All right. So we should probably start to wrap things up. And there's a part in this chapter that is sort of an overview of what we're going to be doing in the rest of the book. Basically, what we're going to do from now on is the actual hero's journey itself. And it's going to follow, basically this is the universal steps that everybody from Odysseus to Dorothy follow on their journey. And it starts off with, this is going to be the way the chapters break off. We're going to start with the call to adventure, or basically the hero's getting called to do what he has to do. Refusal of the call. Basically, Frodo saying, I don't want the ring. Supernatural aid, basically getting help from a magical source. Crossing the first threshold, or sort of leaving the home. The belly of the whale, or the passage into the underworld, or the realm of night. And that's going to be basically part one. The next part in...
We're not doing that all in 1 week, are we?
No, we're not doing that all in 1 week. I will tell you what we're doing at the end of this. Don't have to read that all. I have very long plane rides coming up, so I will probably do it in a week. But you will not be expected to. Your reading, probably your first reading, will be Chapter 1, The Departure, which is pages... Ooh, that's long. We're going to do half the departure, because it is... it's 30 pages. Who thinks, let's ask everybody on the interwebs, who thinks they can do 30 pages in a week? Because if not, we can cut it in half.
You just need it to catch up.
Okay.
By the way, I think it's funny that you used the pun, wrap things up.
Oh my, I was not going there. But
We're in the mindset.
We are in the mindset.
They say 30 pages one day.
30 pages one day? Alright, we're doing all of the departure, chapter 1. If y'all want to do it, so be it. Alright, so after the departure and all of that good stuff, I'm trying to find my page because I lost it. I don't know why I'm suddenly Southern.
It's fun to change accents.
It is fun to change accents. If we didn't have enough people show up, I was going to have Brendan do silly voices, so it sounded like we had lots of people in here. And I may do that next week if we don't have more people show up, so please come, although it would be amusing. So the next one is the road of trials and the dangerous aspects of the journey and of God. Meeting with the goddess, or the initiation, also going to be the chapter entitled Seducing Alistair. And I hope somebody out there plays Dragon Age. Woman as the Temptress, or the realization of the agony of Oedipus. Atonement with the Father, or Luke, I am your father. I will be referring to that chapter as that. Apotheosis, which for those of you who aren't English majors out there, is a part of the story where everything gets wrapped up. The ultimate boon, which is getting the thing that you were questing for. Or something else that's even better that you didn't know you were questing for. Refusal of the return, or basically not wanting to go back to the world. The magic flight, or, you know, getting out of Mordor. I'm sorry, I am jumping around with my references and explanations. Please tell me to explain if you're not getting them. This is just how my brain works. I constantly think in stories and fandoms and franchises.
Nestor pulls out, Luke, you are your own father.
Luke, you are your own father. Wow.
Yeah, it's a Star Wars joke.
That is Freudian, man. I like it. I'm gonna enjoy having Nestor in the audience. So the rescue from without. Eagles go and save Frodo. Crossing of the return threshold. And by the way, I should probably put spoiler tags on all of it. I would hope everyone out there knows that Vader is Luke's father. I'm not going to put a spoiler tag on that one. Master of Two Worlds. And the freedom to live, the nature and function of the ultimate boon. So that's sort of how we're going to be moving through the hero's journey. And hopefully, or maybe not hopefully, I don't know. This will be the set the tone and rating for the evening, so now you all know not to let your small children watch this show. And yeah, any parting questions?
Nestor says that he should still do silly voices next week.
Alright, Brendan, if you can find your own ride here, because I can't drive you, I'm going to be in Italy, you're doing silly voices.
Oh.
If not, then you'll have them 2 weeks from now. Oh yeah, one last announcement. I'm going to be in Italy, which is going to be fun. I'm going to try to grab some mythological stuff while I'm there, so you might see me come back with new toys. I don't know. You might also see me come back 10 pounds fatter than before. So Foxglove is going to be running the group. Yes, the Green Lantern will be ruling your group, and if you're asked her politely, you may get pretty Green Lantern forms illustrating your myths. So any questions before we go?
Apparently they have the same shoes as me.
Alright.
Just sum what we're going to do next week.
Next week we are reading, like I said, we're reading chapter 1, which is the Call to Adventure, and you're going to, better bet there are going to be a lot of Lord of the Rings references next time, so brush up on your Tolkien, spark note it, watch the movie, read the book if you're a real masochist if you want to try to read Lord of the Rings in a week. It can be done, and I will applaud you if you do. Probably lots of Wizard of Oz references. This whole book was basically taught to me in high school in terms of Lord of the Rings, Wizard of Oz, and Star Wars. So that's probably going to be the sorts of things, in addition to real myths, that'll keep coming. And if you guys want me to do some actual oral tradition style storytelling, if that's something that worked tonight, I'll do that more, because that might just be more interesting or more boring, depending on whether or not I do a good job, than listening to psychoanalyst stuff. So
Nestor says that he has read the entire Lord of the Rings in 1 week.
Go Nestor! Nestor! You're the man. My new favorite person. Good. So then you will have lots of input next week. Now that I know that you're not getting off the hook.
She. Nestor is a
She.
she.
Nestor is a she. I'm very sorry, Nestor. I'm just gonna start using gender-neutral pronouns. It'll make my life so much easier. So you're now Splee, Nestor. I am now referring to you as Splee. So now I'm getting the hook from Fox Club, so I'm gonna say goodnight, and I hope to see you all next week. Yeah, maybe more.